Hey, somebody's got to share this episode with a friend. You already have? Excellent. Good morning, afternoon, or evening. You are listening to the Professional Noticer. Hello, everyone. I'm Andy Andrews. Hey, thank you for making me a part of your week. My purpose here today and with every show we do is to play the part of a best friend or a coach. I want to help you live the life of your wildest dreams by giving you access to the greatest mentors the world has to offer today. This week, the Professional Noticer is sponsored by Books for Vets. The Veterans Administration has asked us for 10,000 books to start. So we need some help. So we've got on andyandrews.com, there is a place that you can add a book and a place that you can just only do books for vets into your cart. And what we're doing is a $10 book or a $10 donation from you. We'll get a hardback that'll cover the shipping, the handling, everything. And so that $10 donation for you will get a book to one of our veterans working with the Veterans Administration or other employees working there. So thank you for your participation in that, the Books with Vets. Observations and answers, that's what we do here on the Professional Noticer. And it's very cool to me when we have somebody who not only has great observations, but has awesome answers and even has answers about the observations and observations about the answers. I have just one of the greatest guys that I have known and that I still know here today. And this guy is the founder and chairman of Michael Hyatt and Company, which may give you like a clue as to who we're about to talk to. And this helps leaders get focused, especially on what they need to do to win at work and at home. And this is what we're going to be talking about today because he has a brand new book that's coming out. I know him because he was formerly the chairman and CEO of the publishing company that found this poor little person, that had written this book nobody wanted. And I'm very happy to have. Not only was he's a best-selling author, New York Times, Wall Street Journal, of multiple books. Please welcome my friend, Michael Hyatt, who I will call Mike from here on out. Hey, buddy, how are you?
Good, Andy. Good to be with you, man. I missed you.
I have missed you. I'm so glad you're here. How's Gail?
Gail's doing great. She's busy with the grandkids, busy with our lake house. And so, yeah, she's really busy.
Good. And how's Winston?
Winston, my dog, my Labradoodle, is just his amazing, iconic, serene self.
I love that dog. I love that. He is your only son. And for those of you who don't know, Mike and Gail have, like 150 daughters, I think.
That's right.
Every time I go over there, it's like, God, how many daughters do you have? So it's 5 though, right?
It's 5. That's right. I got a little bit more evened out on the grandkids because I have 9 grandkids, but 5 of those are grandsons.
Wow. Yeah, this is going to be a whole new life for you, man. Raising boys. You were the person I always looked at and go, man, the guy better make some money because everything he makes is going to weddings, So, but I'm excited you're here. And before we move forward, I need to clarify for people that it's really Gail that I owe my career to.
That's true.
Yeah, because Gail was the one who, we'd been turned down 51 times for the Traveler's Gift, and it was Gail that read it and convinced her husband that this poor guy needed a break, So I do owe a lot to you guys.
She kind of gave me an ultimatum.
Really?
Yeah. She said, you will publish this book. Now, she was a huge advocate after she read it. And she said, look, I'm just telling you, I know your company, I think we rejected it twice before.
Yeah. You had.
I'd never seen it, but people downstream from me. But Gail just insisted that I read it, and I did. And I was like, why did we reject this? We absolutely have to publish this. I'm glad we did. Man, yeah. Well,
that's part of my life story. And every time I think about that book, I think of you and Gail. And but you have written so many books, but you and Megan have a new one coming out.
Yes. Megan's my oldest daughter. And she's the CEO now of Michael Hyatt and Company. We made that transition about was January the 2nd of this year, 2021, as we're recording this. So she's become the CEO. I've now stepped kind of down and I'm the chairman and the founder, which means basically I work 3 days a week, which is fantastic. But I'm super excited about this book because it's called Win at Work and Succeed at Life. And I thought, well, this is a book, that I really struggled to live before I wrote it. And I thought, but somebody that's in the middle of it needs to join me with this. And so Megan's got 5 kids of her own. She's a very busy CEO with a demanding career, but with 5 kids, including 2 special needs kids. So yeah, she's got her hands full, but she's also living what we call the double win at work and succeed at life. And we're just really intent on that message and that reality of living a more balanced life.
Yeah, to me, books are interesting generally to me. And then some books are great, but there are books that I read that I know the author has lived it and proven it long enough to make this thing incredibly valuable. And that's what I think we have here. I've known you for a long time, and I've known how you work. I know how you live. I mean, you met Austin when he was like 4 years old and had cat pistols and a cowboy hat, and you shook his hand and said, "What are your name?" He said, "Austin Spitfire." And we went, "What?" But I mean, I've been watching you for a long time, and I'm really excited about this book. It comes out in April, right?
It does. Yep.
Okay. And we'll get to the exact date and everything.
Okay.
But you mentioned a minute ago the double win. Explain what that means.
Yeah. So let me set this up with a story. I know you're all about the stories. You're the best storyteller I know. So let me just tell you a story. And I open the book with this. But back in the year 2000, I was given responsibility for one of Thomas Nelson Publishers' 14 book publishing divisions. So they gave me responsibility for Nelson Books, again, one division among 14. What I didn't know when I said yes was that it was dead last in every significant financial metric. So it was losing money. It wasn't growing. In fact, it was shrinking. The employee morale was terrible, all of that. So the CEO, Sam Moore, you know him, and he's gone now, but he asked me, he said, "How long is it going to take you to turn this division around?" And Andy, I didn't have a clue, but I just pulled a number out of the air. And I said, "I think it's going to take about 3 years." And he said, "Well, that's kind of what I was thinking. So have at it." So man, I rolled up my sleeves. I went back to the team, shared a vision with them of what I thought we could do. And we got to work. We were working 70, 80 hours a week. We were working nights and weekends, and I was working through vacations, but we did it. And in fact, we turned it around not in 36 months or 3 years, but we did it in a year and a half. And so I was so pumped, not the least of which was because I got the biggest bonus check I'd ever received in my life. And kind of to your point earlier, I knew I needed to save for weddings and have some other expenses. So this is pretty exciting to me. This bonus check was more than my annual salary. So wow. I could not wait to get home and share it with Gail because she's always been my biggest cheerleader, my biggest fan. I knew she would be elated. So I bounced into the house, unfurled this check to her and said, "Look at this. Can you believe it?" She looked at it and she said, "Yeah, it's nice." And she was just a little bit less than her usual enthusiastic self. And then she said to me, I'll never forget this. She said to me, "Babe, we need to talk." And I thought to myself, uh-oh, this is not going to be good. So we went into the den, we sat down, and she began to tear up.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but I just had the thought. You're exactly right. When our wives just talk, it's fine. But when they say they need to talk, we're in trouble. Go ahead.
That's right. And I was in trouble. And so she teared up a little bit and she said, I need to be honest with you about something. And she said, "First, I love you and I appreciate how hard you work for this family. So I just want that to be out there." But she said, "Babe, you're never home." And she said, "Even when you are, you're not really here." Well, man, I felt so defensive. I wanted to defend myself, but I also kind of knew she was right. And then she said, a little another tear, and she said, your daughters need you now more than ever. And then she started crying and she said, honestly, I feel like a single mom. That was a gut kick, because here I was, Andy, I thought I'd reached the pinnacle of success, but what I discovered was that it was a false summit. That if I was winning at work, but losing at home, then that really wasn't winning by my definition. And that's what we call in the book the double win, when you could both win at work and succeed in the rest of your life. And it's not just your home life, but your health and your most important relationships and, all the other things that make up your life beyond your work.
Isn't that interesting that guys, especially, if we ask a guy, what is the definition of success to you? Guys usually say something like, houses or no debt or a watch or a boat or a car or whatever. And that's what they say if we ask, what is success to you? But if we ask them, what is a successful life? It's a totally different answer. And that's what you're talking about with the double win.
Well, I really am. And one of the things that, I coach a lot of entrepreneurs and business owners. We have over 600 clients in our program. And one of the things I see over and over again, particularly among young entrepreneurs, young business owners, is that they look to a lot of these celebrity entrepreneurs, people like Elon Musk, who basically says you got to be working 100 hours a week if you're going to be successful. If you're going to really make a mark on the world, you got to be working 100 hours a week. And only pick him out because he's been so public about this. We call it in the book, Megan and I call it the hustle fallacy. But, I think he's on his third marriage now. By his own admission, his 5 sons don't talk to him. And from my perspective, that's not winning. And I'm not willing to sacrifice my health, my wife, my kids on the altar of my ambition. I want both. And I think it's possible to have both. And certainly, I proved it in my own life. My clients are living it every day. None of us perfectly, but all in all, we're experiencing extraordinary success and balance. And it's something worth fighting for.
Man, Mike, I know you well. You know me well. I've watched you as a dad. You've watched me as a dad. And I got to say, man, you get to a point where your children aren't talking to you. That's not just not winning. That is losing.
It is.
That is in a huge way. One of the things that you taught me the importance of, until I met you, I never really, in the publishing world, I read a lot, but I never really paid attention to subtitles. But now I understand, the subtitle, the title is supposed to just kind of grab you, which your title is Win at Work and Succeed at Life. That kind of tells you what it is, but it's the subtitle oftentimes that makes me want to read a book. And I've got down here this subtitle I think is great, and because it just like hits you between the eyes. It's 5 principles to free yourself from the cult of overwork. So you just hit on that a minute ago, but explain a little bit more about that cult of overwork. And I have been guilty of that myself. And
yeah, me too. The truth is today we have this hustle fallacy that's alive and well. It's encouraged, as I said, by these celebrity entrepreneurs. The hustle fallacy, we talk about side hustles, we talk about doing whatever it takes, to make your mark on the world. And it really is like a religious cult. And it's so difficult to free ourselves from it because work, if you allow it, will take up 168 hours a week, all of your free time, all of your available time. And it's like a religion because for many of us, we derive our sense of identity, our sense of meaning from our work. And I talk to entrepreneurs all the time. Some of them, as old as I am, they just say, well, my work is my hobby. I love my work. And we've got to admit, that work is fun, particularly if you're doing what you love to do. But that wasn't how we were created to be. Life is multi-dimensional. it's not just our vocation that's important. It is important. There's no question about that. And I want to win in the biggest possible way in my vocation. But I've got my spiritual life, my intellectual life, my emotional life, my physical life. I've got my marriage, my kids, my friends. I've got my work. I got my hobbies, and I've got my finances. Those 10 different domains of life comprise a fully integrated life, and they're interrelated with one another. So that, for example, if I'm experiencing stress at work, it's inevitable that I'm going to bring that home, and my family is going to feel it. Gail knows that I'm under stress. She feels it. Maybe it's because I'm just short with her, or I find something to pick on, about her. And conversely, if I'm having stress at home, if one of my kids has gone off the rails, that's going to distract me at work. I'm thinking about my kid and what am I going to do to, help get them back on track. And so these are all interrelated. Boy, if you go through a health crisis, that's going to cascade into the rest of your life. Yeah. So all these things are interrelated, so that inevitably, Andy, if we're playing the long game, and I know we all are, if we're playing the long game and if we want to win long term, we got to realize this is a marathon, and we've got to give the appropriate, and that's a key word here, appropriate amount of attention to each of these domains. Life balance does not mean that we give equal attention to each of those domains. That's not necessary. I'm going to work 6 hours today, but I don't need to work out for 6 hours today, right?
Right.
I don't need my friends today. So the appropriate amount of time, am I giving appropriate attention to each of these so that the entirety of my life supports what I'm trying to do with myself and the world? Does that make sense?
Yeah, and you're doing great. But I have to say, when you listed all this, you listed friends, and I feel like you have been neglecting me a lot lately. But that's neither here nor there. I'm
sure that's true.
You can give a lot of my time to Gail, and we'll be fine. Okay.
Okay.
One of the things that I think is curious about what you and Megan nailed in this book is most times people think of constraints as something that just pulls everything back. And if you're gonna deal with constraints, you're just gonna have to make less, do less, produce less. And yet you explain how constraints can actually increase a lot of stuff.
It really can. And it's counterintuitive, because we think if we put constraints on our work time, for example, that, like you said, we're going to have to settle for less in some way, less productivity, less creativity, less income, or whatever. And we found it to be exactly the opposite. So if you go back to my story, this would have been about the middle of 2002, I decided that if I was going to continue to lead that division, which I'd turned around, it had gone from number 14 to number 1, that I needed some help. I was kind of out of tricks. So I decided to hire an executive coach. And I also I knew I needed help getting this life balance, because, man, the last thing I wanted to do was disappoint Gail, disappoint the girls,
right?
To end up with an alienated family. So I hired an executive coach. It was Daniel Harkavy, with whom I wrote my book, Living Forward on Life Planning. But Daniel, first thing he had me do was create a life plan. So I got a vision for each of these different domains or life accounts. And then he said to me, and this was the constraint part of it, he said, from what I can tell, you have no constraints on your work. You're working evenings. You're getting to the office early in the morning. You're working on the weekends. You're even working on your vacations. Is that true? And I said, yes, that is true. And he said, would you be willing, as an experiment, to put some parameters around that? I said, sure. He said, okay, so when are you going to stop work in the daytime? And my kind of default thing before that, Andy, was, well, finish when I'm done, or can't keep my eyes open any longer, right? And I said, to him, no, I'll stop at 6 p.m. He said, okay, great. He said, what about weekends? Because he said, the weekends got to be for your family and some of your other pursuits. And I said, okay, I'm willing to not work on the weekends. And what about vacations? Because my practice was, I always look forward to vacations, not to spend time with the family, not to enjoy the sun, not to, fish or do something else, but it was a time for me to catch up on work. I'd get up way before the family got up, and I would catch up on email or some big project that I hadn't found time for. And I said, okay, I'm willing to not work on my vacations. And he said, okay, great. Then he said, I'm sure you won't mind if I periodically call Gail to check in and see how you're doing.
Oh, Daniel.
Oh, that made me think twice. I thought, whoa, I guess this is getting real all of a sudden.
Yeah.
So that's what he did, for the next year. He would call her once a quarter and just say, hey, just want to check in. How's he doing? Well, that gave me some enormous accountability. But here's what happened. So because of the constraints, every day or almost every day became like that Friday before you go on vacation on Saturday.
Right.
You don't have time to goof off. You don't have time to get involved in idle talk or check social media. You're just hunkered down, focused on what you got to get done, because it was no longer an option for me to drag my work into the evening or go to the office on weekends to catch up. No, I had to get it done in that 8-hour period. And that, more than anything, that constraint, more than anything, made room in my life for the other things that I'd been neglecting.
That's awesome. I love what you said about, it became like a Friday before you go on vacation. You remember the old Zig story, right? About how you can't get anything done, but then you can go to Hawaii if you get it done. It goes through this whole thing. And my question is, why don't you go to Hawaii tomorrow every day for the rest of your life? That is, I talk to a ton of people that feel like a life balance is like a myth.
Right.
That there's really no such thing, and they have stopped even trying.
Yeah. No, and you know what? People advocate that. People like Elon Musk advocate that people do that. And there's other names I could name, but yeah, they just kind of thrown it out. And I'm telling you, it's possible. And it's not just possible for me, because maybe somebody's listening to this and say, well, good for you. You're the exception that proves the rule. But our clients are doing this. Our team does this. We have now about 50 full-time employees. And one of the things that we have been rigorous about is saying, up until the pandemic started, we said, we don't want you to work more than 8 hours a day. So we're not going to send you emails in the evening or on weekends or on your vacation. We're not going to expect you to reply or initiate work in the evenings or on the weekends or on your vacation. And we also gave them a paid 30-day sabbatical every 3 years so they could do whatever they want, paid time off. The one thing they couldn't do is work during that 30-day period. So then entered the pandemic. So as we're recording this, that happened about a year ago. And one of the things we observed, Andy, was that, we have a lot of young parents who work for us, and suddenly they didn't have daycare for their kids. Their kids were home from school underfoot, and they were stressed out with everything that was going on. So we said, okay, look, as an experiment, by the way, this is the way I hack my way into anything I've never tried before, is I set it up as an experiment. And I said, as an experiment, let's go from an 8-hour workday to a 6-hour workday. So we're not going to start till 9, and we're going to finish at 3 promptly. And we're going to do it for 2 weeks, and then we're going to circle back and see how we did. And the key as to whether we continue is, can we maintain the same level of productivity? Because I'm not willing to revise the budget, based on what I know. I don't think this is going to affect our business, but I want to see if we can get it done in less time so we all have more time to tend to the things that are now demanding of us at home. So after 2 weeks, we got together, the executive team, and we said, man, we cannot tell any difference. So we decided to go for another month. And then after a month, we said, let's go through the summer and see how it is. And then in our strategic planning meeting, we got together in September and we said, man, this is working so well. And we're on track to beat our budget. And I'll tell you in a moment how much we beat it. We're on track to beat our budget. So let's make this a permanent feature, a permanent benefit for working here at Michael Hyatt & Company. So to this day, we work 30 hours a week. We finished last year 101% ahead of 2019, which was already a highly profitable year, but we more than doubled our profit and we beat our budget by over 50%. And at the same time, did it for the most part on a 30-hour work week. So this is totally possible. And there's another book that I would just recommend to people by a guy named Alex Pang, and it's called Shorter. And in the book, he presents all the science and all the reason why this works and gives a gazillion case studies of other companies that have shortened their work hours, whether it's a 4-day work week or 30 hours a week or even 25 hours a week, and have seen an explosion in their profitability. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah, that's awesome. Don't listen to that part. Don't listen to that part. just don't want him to, he didn't need to hear that part.
He didn't need to hear that, no.
No. But it is awesome. And it's also awesome that as a boss, you're willing to check that out and see how that goes. There are a lot of CEOs that watch this podcast, and of smaller businesses and larger businesses. And I have watched, I guess, the importance of a CEO finding that life balance. And because I had a client one time, Mike, that he was incredibly effective. I mean, just personally incredibly effective. But he had a lifestyle situation that was a little bit different than the people that worked in the company. And so they were matching him, matching his work ethic and all like this. And I became, they're my client. And so I became a little concerned because they were doing great, but I became a little concerned that, you're doing great now, but I'm not sure this can last. I'm not sure this pace, it can last for you, okay, because you're in a different position in your life, but most of these other people are not in your position. And at some point, in my example to that person was, back when the Thunderbirds, during the Arab oil embargo, the Thunderbirds and the Blue Angels quit flying. I mean, no fuel, and they quit flying. And so when they came back, the Thunderbirds began to really practice more than they ever had. And so there became less time for other things. And one of those things there was less time for was maintenance. And there came a day, to fly those tight formations, the wing people, there's flight leader, and then you got these other 5 or 6 guys, and they're flying those tight formations by doing this. They're not looking forward. They're looking at the leader. That's what they're looking at. And there came a time during that point that the flight leader had a stabilization problem in the plane, and the entire team followed him right into the ground. I mean, killed them all.
Wow.
I mean, that's an absolutely true story. And so to me, I think there is a greater, I guess, a greater importance put on the leader making sure you get this right.
Absolutely. Yeah, I call this the law of replication. And I've told the story in various contexts. I may have told it on your program before, but my dad is a veteran of the Korean War. He's 87 years old now, but he signed up for the Marines when he was 17. A few months into his stint in Korea, he was hit with some shrapnel, was in a coma for 6 months, and has limped for the rest of his life. And so when I was a young man, young boy, about the age of 5, I remember my mom coming to me because I was limping. And she said, I know you look up to Dad and love Dad, and Dad limps, but Dad limps because he was injured in the war. You don't need to limp. But this is just illustrative of the very thing that you're talking about, is that we naturally want to imitate our leaders. And you do a lot of consulting and coaching inside of corporations, and how people just kind of mimic unconsciously the CEO. And this is why, as CEOs, as leaders, we've got to get it right. Because like you said, sometimes we have the stamina, or we're in a season of life where we can, if we chose to, we could work nonstop all the time, but that's not true for everybody else.
Right.
And we will run them, to use your example, run them right into the ground with us if we're not careful. And so it's critically important that we get this formula right. My philosophy is, if I take care of my team will take care of my customers, and my customers will take care of me. Right. And I think a lot of CEOs get that backwards. They want to take care of the customers hoping the customers will take care of them and their employees. But you got to treat your team like they're the most important customers you have. Last year, we won the Inc. magazine award for best places to work.
Yeah.
And it showed, they give you this beautiful report when you do it. And by the way, I have nothing to do with it as a business owner other than to apply. And then they send out confidential surveys to all of our team and they respond confidentially. And I don't even get to see the answers. All I get to see is the tally. But our engagement at Michael Hyatt and Company was 98.6%, which is enormous because like the average company, less than 39%. So what that means is about 60% of the time, people are checking Facebook, chit-chatting with, their cube or office mates and just not getting work done that matters.
Right.
And I really believe that the reason we have such high engagement numbers is because we have people that when they get to work, they're really focused on work. They're not worried about their families. They're not worried about their health because we give them space to deal with all that.
Yeah. There's an entire section in the book about sleep. Talk to me about that. Because I got a special question about that after I hear what you have to say.
Well, I think for a lot of my career, Andy, I saw sleep as the enemy. And I thought to myself, man, if I could get up a couple hours earlier than my competition, I could get a leg up and basically win the race. And we even published a book when I was at Thomas Nelson that advocated for trying to get by on 4 hours sleep a night under the sort of the premise that if you could do that, if you could put in those additional 4 hours instead of sleeping 8, that give you 4 more hours to work. And how competitive would that make you? Well, the truth is the science just doesn't support that. There's not all hours are created equal. And after about 55 hours, you get no additional productivity. This is what the science says, no additional productivity for the time invested. So 55 hours is about the max. The most productive people, the people that create enormous amounts of work, scientific breakthroughs, artistic masterpieces, those people are working 4 to 6 hours a day. So what it means is that sleep is not the reward for working hard. It's the prerequisite for being able to be focused, productive, and creative. And so it's related to your heart health. It's related to your psychological well-being, the quality of relationships. I mean, do you ever notice, Dan Sullivan says this, he says, do you ever notice that the more tired you get, the dumber everybody else gets?
What a great line. That is great. The
rest is important. So
the tighter you are, the worse everybody drives. Yeah.
That's right.
Oh my God.
The average adult needs about 8 hours sleep a night. And I really try to do that. And the key to it is not setting an alarm of when to get up, but setting an alarm of when to go to bed. And I do that to this day.
All right, let me throw you a curveball here.
Okay.
What if you have a hard time sleeping?
Well, the good news is that there are ways to improve that. Sleeping, and certainly all of us have challenges from time to time, particularly as we grow older, but we've got to make sure that we're practicing good sleep hygiene. And we've got a lot of this inside the book, Win at Work and Succeed at Life, where we talk about this, an entire chapter. But things like making sure that you get blackout shades so there's no ambient light inside of your house or inside of your room where you're trying to sleep. Lowering the temperature, to like 68 degrees. Most people sleep better when it's a little bit cool in the room. Using nightshades if you have to. Having some white noise so that you mask out other sounds. No screens for an hour or two before you go to bed. No drinking of caffeine, late in the day. Really pay attention to how caffeine affects you. Some people can metabolize it quickly. Others are more slow. And some people, if you have a cup of coffee after that morning one, it'll keep you awake through the night. Alcohol can impact it. So, another resource beyond my book is a book called Sleep Smarter. And I can't remember who, I think it's Sean Stevenson is the author. Sleep Smarter, which it's an entire book with all the science and all the research behind it. But you can get better at this with practice, and particularly by paying attention to the environment and creating a space that gives you the best chance of succeeding at sleep.
Right. Austin and Polly have read that book, and Austin and Polly are like experts on sleep. And Austin particularly has been an expert for a while on that. I remember one day in high school, Austin said on a Friday night, he said, "Mom, Dad, tomorrow, can I just sleep until I wake up? Just one Saturday, can I sleep until I wake up?" And we said, "Yes, you can. You can." He's like, "Oh, great." But we lied because we woke him up at 4:30 Saturday afternoon.
Oh, wow.
I was like, wow. I mean, these guys, Austin and Adam both, man, they're not like they used to be, but when they were about 15 or 16, you'd go in, just shut your alarm off, but they're just totally asleep, right there by their heads. I wish I could sleep like a teenager.
Well, and one of the reasons that is because that's when their body's putting so much demands on them for growth.
All right.
So a lot of people think, for example, that you build muscle in the gym. You don't actually build muscle in the gym. You tear down muscle in the gym. You build it when you sleep. This is why professional athletes, Tom Brady, who won the Super Bowl this year, I went in and started researching what he does, and he's like one of the most habit-focused individuals, most disciplined individuals you ever meet. Right. But his number one habit is? He sleeps 9 hours a night because he knows that's what it takes for his body to stay lean and for him to be able to perform as the oldest quarterback in the NFL. He's got to make sure he gets plenty of sleep. And boy, did he perform. That Super Bowl was amazing.
Man, isn't that true? Okay, I got one more question. And I don't want you to reveal, I don't want you to make it where we don't want to read the book, but I am interested in the 5 things.
Yeah.
And I think everybody will be, I think this is going to be just an awesome book for everybody.
Thank you.
So tell me the 5 things, you have the 5 things that somebody could do to kind of go toward that double win in their organization with their friends.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of 5 principles, and then we have a practice set up for each of the principles. So let me give you the 5 principles, and the people can get the book.
Okay. All right. Good.
Then we talked about a couple of these, but first of all, work is one of many ways to orient your life. Work is one of many ways to orient your life because, again, life is multidimensional. Number 2, we talked about.
That's a mental shift. Yeah.
That's a mental shift. Absolutely. And I talk to people all the time. People our age, that don't have hobbies. They don't have friends. They're not doing anything to take care of their health. And so that first principle, you gotta pay attention to those other domains. Number 2, we already talked about, constraints foster productivity, creativity, and freedom. They're not something to be shunned. They're something to be embraced. Constraints lead to greater productivity, freedom, and creativity. Number 3, work-life balance is possible. Now, if you throw the baby out with the bathwater and say it's not possible, guess what? You won't pursue it. Right. But if you think it's possible, you will. Number 4, there's incredible power in non-achievement. Now, for those of us that are high achievers, and I put myself in this category, I'm an Enneagram 3, which is sometimes called the achiever. If you look at the Gallup or the Clifton Strength Finders test, achiever is my number one thing. And so it used to be that I only valued achieving. But there's a lot of things that you can't measure that are important and valuable in life, like quality time with the people you love, or spending time just on hobbies that are enormously enriching, but I would put those under the umbrella of non-achievement time. And then finally, number 5, rest is the foundation for meaningful, productive work. Not the reward, but it's the foundation. If you want to have more meaningful, more productive work, you got to get the rest. You got to build that into your schedule.
That is so great, Mike. That is so great. Before I let you go, I want to find out where everybody can reach you. But also, I have a message, just a personal message for Megan from me.
Okay.
Just tell her that I am so proud of her being CEO of Michael Hyatt and Company, and tell her that if she just stays in that position a little bit longer, she can call it Hyatt and Company, that she'll be CEO of. And then a little later, it can be Megan Hyatt and Company. Tell her that was my business consulting for her. Yeah.
Great.
So where can everybody reach you, buddy?
Yeah, well, the best place is probably my main website, which is just michaelhyatt.com. We do have a special site set up for the book, though, and particularly for your audience. It's called winandsucceedbook.com/noticer. winandsucceedbook.com/noticer. And there's like $500 worth of free bonuses related to the book that'll help you apply this and implement it into your life so you don't just read about it, but you actually get the transformation.
Wow. Thank you. And thank you for doing that. And,
you're welcome.
Please tell your sweet family I said hello, and I appreciate you taking the time to do this, Mike.
Yeah, same to Polly and to the boys. Good to see you.
All right. See you soon. I'm Andy Andrews, the professional noticer, harnessing common sense and wisdom to plow through challenges all the way to an answer for you. And I think that'll do it for this week. Get us out of here, Matthew. So, ladies and gentlemen, and to the boys and girls who aspire to become ladies and gentlemen, we've reached the end of another episode of The Professional Noticer. In a world where common sense has become a superpower, I'm harnessing what mental energy I have for you, seeking wisdom, making observations, and endeavoring to answer tough questions in a way that will empower your family and your business. I'm Andy Andrews. Until next week, goodbye. This episode of The Professional Noticer was produced by Matt Limpert. The Noticer theme written and performed by Sugarcane Jane. World's smallest violins provided for the cast and crew by Twinkle and Smoke of Beverly Hills. Additional financial consideration provided by Frosty Brand No Melt Popsicles. Do you have a sweet tooth? You like frozen treats, but hate it when they melt everywhere? Well, we have a surprise for you. Introducing the revolutionary Frosty Brand No Melt Popsicles. These sweet treats come in a wide variety of interesting flavors. Of course, we have all the traditional ones you've come to know and love: cherry, green apple, grape, orange, blue raspberry, even tangerine. Frosty Brand is now introducing, however, a limited edition lineup of No Melt Popsicles in exciting new flavors: dill pickle, bacon, pumpkin spice, asparagus, scrambled egg, and our most recent edition made from car exhaust and street debris, the No Melt Popsicle we call the Cleveland. Since this astounding product is still new, there's a limited amount and only available in certain locations at certain times of the year. At the moment, Frosty Brand No Melt Popsicles are only offered during the months of January and February in Saskatchewan, Siberia, Greenland, and Nova Scotia. But we proudly serve our no-melt popsicles year-round in Antarctica. Our patented no-melt technology is revolutionizing the popsicle world. Never rush eating a popsicle again due to melting, and enjoy it as long as you like. The Frosty Brand No-Melt Popsicle, frozen treats that last. This product works best out of doors, only in the locations it is sold, and during the winter.